Good day to all of you. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran. You are watching us via Signal TV, channels 8 and 250 for high-definition TV, as well as on Facebook.com/OneNewsPH. You can also watch us via YouTube. Just enter OneNewsPH, look for agenda, and voila, you get to see what we have aired in the past and in recent times. Today is March 19, 2021. It's a Friday. I'm sure many of you are looking forward to the weekend because it has been one busy, hectic, stressful week for all of us, particularly in the health aspect. Now, today we will be interviewing two important individuals, one in the field of health and the other one in the field of justice, national interest, and I suppose by now politics as well. We will be speaking with Dr. Ted Herbosa, Special Advisor, National Task Force versus COVID-19, as well as retired Senior Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Antonio Carpio. And we will be speaking with Ted Herbosa, Doc Ted, regarding the faster than a speeding train or a bullet, itong COVID-19, and slower than, well, I won't be critical, but you know, the vaccination program is relatively slow compared to the rate of attack of COVID-19 in the Philippines. As for Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, we will speak to him regarding ISAMBAYAN, or if you look at their title, One Sambayan, because they have formed a group. Now it has caused a stir. It has caused a stir in media. It has caused a stir in social media because people are wondering, ano ba ito, political group? Why are they talking about lineups, etc., etc.? But I have my own set of questions after watching their full program, their launch yesterday on Zoom. Okay, let's go into the program. First, let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star for the headlines. The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF, is now considering circuit breaker or limited time lockdowns to reverse the uptrend in COVID-19 cases. What that circuit breaker is, I will ask Dr. Ted Herbosa on the matter. For Octa Research, this rising trend is a serious surge and should be classified as a high risk in its latest report. Metro Manila had a 78% increase in cases compared to last week. And the Isambayan Coalition plans to woo Vice President Leni Robredo, Senator Grace Poe, and Mayor Isko Moreno for a unified opposition. Let's get to know more about the coalition with one of its conveners later, retired Senior Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Antonio Carpio. Yan po ang mga balita. Bago po tayo pumunta sa interview, panawagan lang po doon sa mga nasa pamahalaan. I am appealing to those in the national government. Please do not ask us to stay home. Do not imprison the 65-year-old and above citizens of the Philippines. Do not imprison the 18-year-old and below citizens of the Philippines while you jokers are gallivanting around, even some senators, some government officials, and namimigay kayo ng mga land title, housing certificates of conveyance ba yun or something. Eh, meron nga pong isang governor sa bandang norte, sinara niya yung puwerta. Sabi na, wala akong pakialam kahit sino pang senador yan. Eh, ikot kayo ng ikot. Kayo nire-report sa dyaryo, sa telebisyon na meron kayong COVID. Pagkatas, mamamasyal kayo dito para mamigay ng mga certificate. Tapos, you will ask my people to gather 1,000 people? Eh, yun po, no? I'm putting this where it is. there is a group of people associated with Malacanang. Para to be fair lang, hindi ko na kayo papangalanan. Magbasa na lang yung tao sa dyaryo at makinig sa balita. There's a group of people who keep going around the Philippines, giving out land titles, certificates, etc. And the coordination is such that the staff of these people are asking local officials, kindly gather 1,000 people, etc. Kahapon po, doon, sa Visayas, nag-gather na naman sila. Eh, ang nangyari, hindi na nakasipot yung congressman, hindi na nakasipot yung mayor, ewan ko kung sumipot yung governor, etc. Kasi exposed na sila sa COVID eh. So sabi nila, nako, hindi na kami magpapakita, baka mahawa pa namin si Presidente, madami pa kami dyan, kami pa masisi. In any case, I'm just appealing. Please, what is good? Well, it cannot be a situation where you tell us to stay home, to be safe, and then you wander about doing your political, and then you say, namumulitika yung iba. Eh, kayo nangangampanya kayo eh. Sorry, I have to get that off my chest. Let's move on to the interview. Thank you, Gab, for pulling me out of that cauldron. Let's speak with Dr. Ted Herbosa, Special Advisor, National Task Force versus COVID-19. Doc Ted, pasensya ka na.
Good morning, Cito. Cool down muna. Baka blood pressure mo tumataas.
No, this is not political for my part. But even the local politicians are telling me, boss, nakakatakot eh. Gala ng gala itong mga national officials, itong mga kung sino-sino, gala ng gala. Tapos mapipilitan kami mag-accommodate sa kanila. Tapos malalaman namin, sorry, nito, may ganito, may ganyan. No, anyway, I meant to ask you first, regarding this news item on this circuit breaker. Alam ko, kinopya natin yan dyan sa Singapore. Diba?
Okay.
Okay, now, what exactly are we talking about in circuit breaker and how does the IATF intend to implement it? Para wala nang mga false fake news.
Sige, so kung kayo may bahay kayo na may circuit breaker or may building na may circuit breaker, ang pag binuksan mo yung circuit breaker, ang daming switch doon, di ba? May switch doon na, and then pwede mong i-off, i-on yung sa isang kwarto, sa kabilang kwarto. So that's what you call circuit breaker lockdown. Na-implement ito in November, December last year sa UK. Naalala mo yung UK, nagkaroon ng UK variant. And then ang ginawang in-implement ng mga United Kingdom countries, Wales, Ireland, is itong circuit breaker policy. So 2 weeks, nila-lockdown nila ang special areas. Like for example, yung leisure and pubs, sinara nila for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, i-open nila. Ganun din, schools, stop nila for 2 weeks. And then after that, i-open nila. So it's a 2-week cycles of suppression. Ang idea nito, sabi nila, napupuno na yung mga ospital, which is what's happening to us in Metro Manila. Napupuno na yung mga ospital and gusto mong makahabol yung contact tracing and testing. So very much the same principle yung ginawa naman natin last year, March, yung Luzon-wide lockdown, di ba? Nag-umpisa tayo sa NCR, tapos naging Luzon-wide, tapos halos naging buong Pilipinas. And we saw for a fact that that was very bad for the economy. Na yun ang naging so, circuit breaker, hindi electrician po tatawagin natin. It's basically closing off non-essential. Yan, yung sinasabi mo kanina, yung matanda o hindi pa alisin ng bahay, you recommend people to stay home if it's not necessary to go out. And then you close leisure and non-essential establishments.
Okay, Dr. Ted, please bear with me on this one, kasi I'm a senior citizen. I don't know if you are. You don't look it.
I am.
Oh, you
I
are? Okay.
Citizen.
Well, you look good
I'm
for
a
a senior
card-bearing member of
Okay. Brad.
Yes.
Okay, here's a problem. I have been speaking with many senior citizens and medyo galit na. Kasi sabi nila, sinabi ni Presidente, mag-MGCQ na tayo. Sabi ni Presidente, let's open the economy. Pero paglalabas kami, sisitahin kami. Yung mga 65 and above or 18 and below. And a very critical point came out in those discussions. I realized, wait a minute, this containment policy of the World Health Organization for senior citizens was a response to the outbreaks in care housing facilities, yung mga home for the elderly in Europe, which we don't have here. Number one. Number two, it was supposed to be in the Philippines a momentary solution. Pero 1 year na. 1 year nang nagsisilbi ng prison term, and I will call it nothing else, yung mga 65 and above. I mean, how can we justify this medically? Because we are endangering these people.
Well, ang principle kasi nila is that when you allow the seniors to go out more mobile, their chances to get infected is higher. And if you get infected with COVID-19, the chances to die is higher when you're a senior citizen. So dalawa yun yung may comorbidity, may other illnesses, or you're a senior citizen.
That was
So-
when we started out with COVID-19. I
Correct,
submit to that finding. But 1 year later, you experts, you great physicians, have developed no, I'm calling it. You know, ang dami niyong nagawang mga doktor. You're the one saving lives, not politics, not government. It's physicians on the ground saving lives because you are implementing different alternatives and treatment protocols. Pero 1 year later, does that rule still apply? Kasi parang sabi ko nga, where is the science?
Well, the science is really just prevention. The concept of preventing you from getting sick. But our experience in the hospitals is that we have had many senior citizens who never went out of the house, followed this policy to the letter, talagang hindi lumalabas. May mga tsuhin ako, tsahin na hindi lumalabas. And they would get infected. They would get infected by a household member, maybe the katulong or the gardener, who will go out and then come back and be able to infect them. Or the children, they go out and infect them. Sa children, they're mild. Doon sa mga bata, mild. Pero sa kanila, na-hospital and they get into the ICU. So that's there's really some question on the merit of this. But, our facts are, we're like evolving in this particular disease. Kasi madami tayong hindi alam. 1 year on, although this has been the disease with the most medical literature and publications in the short period of time, we still are uncertain about things. And I'm with you on this one. I'm with you on this one in terms of what it has caused in terms of the mental health. I called up one of my uncles and he talked to me on the phone for an hour. I saw obviously he was suffering from what we call cabin fever. Yung getting cooped up in a place for a year. And he's afraid. He's afraid because the media is telling him, don't go out, you might get COVID, and they're following it to the letter. So that's just one. So I suppose there are many like you who are stressed out and can't do it. So that's the problem. I've been lucky to go out because we visit all the hot spots, but I've also gotten infected, although asymptomatic. So the risks are there. So I think the way I look at it and the way I will answer you is from my perspective as an emergency physician, wherein we manage risks. You cannot be zero risk. The way to approach it is really allow it, because some senior citizens are healthier than some non-senior citizens with many illnesses. They're more at risk. So it's really yun ang mangyari. We're trying to get a policy that will cover all, but it's actually parang case to case.
Okay,
So,
speaking of
anyway, to me, I like the senior citizens to go out in the garden, to go out in a park where there are no people. Basically,
Dr. Speaking of policy, speaking of policy, I'm sure you're updated with all the personalities and officials who've been infected in government. Kung babasahin ko
Cabinet
lahat
level.
ng kilala ko sa cabinet, sa Congress, etc., the Senate is closed right now, you get the impression, kaming mga mamamayan, mas safe pa kami kaysa sa inyo. And then naggagagala pa itong mga nasa gobyerno, parang not to be anti-government or anti-politician, but shouldn't they be staying put as well? Kasi parang nasira ulo ko when I heard a governor in the north. He basically shut the gate. Sabi niya, you jokers are getting the COVID and then you wanna come into my province? And then sa Visayas, yung congressman, yung mayor, ewan ko yung governor, may COVID exposure, tapos nandoon yung Senator Bongo, namimigay daw sila ni Presidente ng mga certificate of conveyance. Sabi ko, kanya kayo tinatamaan ng COVID, pati yung mga pulis natin, etc. Shouldn't they be the first to be the example of staying put?
We can say exigency of service. Yan ang magiging ano dyan. The government cannot stop. It has to continue. So, like a hospital cannot stop functioning. It has to continue. So, in the beginning, sino ba na-infect? Di ba? Mga doctors and nurses. So, we have to continue government. Now, it's very clear 1 year after this COVID pandemic that health and economics are a married couple. You cannot, kasi before, ang principle you cannot have economics if you have no health. So, inuna talaga yung health. And our policy was the longest lockdown in the world. Now, I'm noticing that our policymakers are on a stance wherein they're refusing to lock down. Kasi early on, parang mas madami na tayong kaso ngayon 5,000 cases a day. Nag-lockdown tayo, parang 1,000 or 2,000 cases a day pa lang. So, umabot lang tayo ng mga 10,000 noon. That's still the prediction again.
Yeah, do we have logic in our policy making? Kasi honestly, Doc Ted, I'm already getting confused myself. Kasi sabi ko nga, sabi ni Presidente, MGCQ na. Sabi ni Presidente, open the economy na. Sabi ni Mon Lopez ng DTI, open the ano. And then sabi ng DOH, no, ganito. And then, the senior citizens don't know. May I go out? May I not go out? And then sabi ni Secretary Roque, the children can go out, pero point-to-point lang, accompanied by their elders. And, it's come to the point where, ano ba talaga?
Those are very hard questions and very good questions. And I know, like last night, the IATF met again, and I'm sure mahaba na naman yung discussion. And I've been in some of them, and the discussions are exactly the same. Health and economics are the ones that are fighting it out to debate, and both have evidences for what they are proposing. So, and I'm thinking, the judgment is not on what government did or what government did not do. The judgment is on what the virus did. Because what was uncertain and what we didn't predict was this sudden upsurge that started March 1. Remember, we were all expecting a second wave. Yeah. We thought it was going to happen in December when nagkukumpulan during Christmas shopping. Sabi namin magkaka-second wave yan. Sabi ng mga researchers magkaka-second wave yan. Walang nangyari. And then January came, merong yung sa Quiapo na Black Nazarene. Sabi magkaka-second wave yan. Walang second wave. Yeah. Tapos Santo Niño. Basta, and then everybody started moving normally na, di ba? Parang traffic na uli, everybody going to work. And then, may pronouncements that we will open up to MGCQ. We're going to start vaccination. Ang ganda na ng hope, di ba? And then suddenly, parang binuhusan tayo ng tubig. Suddenly, we now have this upsurge. Starting March 1, parang tumaas na yan. From 3,000 to 4,000. Now we're reaching at 5,000 level. Again, very high. But I realize our policymakers are resisting this very strict wide lockdown. So, ito yung dumating ngayon siguro sa policy on localized lockdown tawag namin or surgical lockdowns. Ngayon, tinatawag na nilang circuit breaker lockdown, patterning after the idea of UK.
Yeah, Doctor, can you please, I don't want to put you on the spot now, but if you can you tell me, is this surge because of the variant? Because we were all happily content believing, hindi, dahil sa UK variant yan, dumagdag pa yung South African variant. And out of nowhere, Secretary Duque tells the president, Mr. President, based on our study, there's only 5% of this entire surge was UK variant. And parang sabi ko, di kanino ngayong kasalanan nito? Saan nanggaling to? And I know for a fact that we don't have enough logistics to scientifically, statistically determine that it is not the UK variant or the African variant. Kasi wala namang enough testing capacity tayo for genome.
No, we do have genome testing, and it's at UP.
We,
It's at our center, the
no, we
Philippine
do.
Genome Center.
We do have the genome testing. I mean, not enough. Kumbaga, no, may office ka, pero you don't have enough satellites and enough materials and people to go out there and test the whole the general population.
Okay, so biosurveillance is a completely different thing from testing. So baka that's where the misconception is. So
Okay.
biosurveillance is studying the genetic mutations of the virus because ito yung hindi naintindihan ng common people.
Oh.
Viruses tend to mutate. That's evolution. Evolution of the virus.
Correct.
They evolve faster than us humans or animals. When they start to propagate, which happened in the first wave of the pandemic, many of these variants started to come out. Now, they call it a clade, which is just a change or a deletion in the sequence, yung code, yung genetic code. And after a while, some of these clades will survive better than the other viral clades and will become variants. So they become predominant. So ito yung nakita. So now it becomes a variant, it has a different behavior. But it's still a SARS-CoV-2 virus. It's still the same virus, meron lang iba sa genetic material. And ang nag-change dito is the way they are able to attach to the cell, yung tinatawag na S protein. Ito yung corona. Di ba may mga parang tusok-tusok.
Yeah, may crown.
So that protein is the one that attaches to our cells. And apparently, these new variants, the B117, which came from the UK, and the South African BN305Y something, they call it with numbers. And now they call it the killer Manila variant, the P.3. Yun ang masaklap doon may pinangalan na. Actually, in the international community, we try not to name it with the place where it was discovered. Kasi nga, sometimes it's not where it came from. We
And
call
it's
it with a
also
number.
racist.
It's very racist, tama. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But some of your colleagues in media continue to name the variants based on the place they came from. Now, this is the one. So, dalawa yan. Ako to me, true, the people have started to have more mobility because the cases were over 1,000, less than 1,000 a day for 3 months. November, December, January, February, 4 months tayo actually flat and our reproductive number was below 1. So parang nawawala na talaga yung virus. And then suddenly, pumutok sa Cebu yung variants of concern. That, by the way, is the Philippine variant. The Philippine variant is the one that our genome center identified in Cebu and is now known as the P.3. So nagkapangalan na siya. Dati variant of concern lang siya. Ang hinahanap natin doon was the UK variant. Pero may nakita tayong ibang variant. The good news is, bumababa na yung kaso sa Cebu. So mukhang the other findings is that if they are very steep, like itong nangyayari sa Metro Manila, March 1 lang, talagang peak. Parang if you look at the graph, it's like vertical. So ang sabi nila, when the virus behaves like this, the drop, the downside, the deceleration is also very fast. So yun ang hope ko. But I may be wrong. I hope I'm correct. But
So,
if the
at the end of
deceleration
the
will be
day,
fast,
yeah.
merong natural forces, not only what government does or doesn't do, but there's also what the virus does. So, gera talaga to. We're fighting with a dynamic enemy, the virus, which also changes. Pati sa vaccine. Our vaccines may be effective today, but maybe next year, may variant na naman that we'll call a vaccine escape. Will not be so. So, babakunahan natin yung 70 million by December. Wala, nagawa nga natin yun as promised. But you say it's slow. I have to agree with you. It's slow. But if we hasten it and nagawa natin somehow, tumulong lahat, private sector, everybody, and nabakunahan natin yung herd immunity, that herd immunity might last only until the time there is a virus again that escapes the protection of the vaccine. And then here we are again. Yung one of the secretaries you mentioned, ano siya? His second infection. Di ba?
Yeah.
Yun ang ano. So those are the problems we have. Oh.
No, I know of a secretary who's on his third infection and critical. I know of a congressman who allegedly got the Sinovac vaccine and now has COVID. Although, yun nga, mababa daw yung symptoms.
Nag-positive, yeah.
Oo,
Oo.
nag-positive siya, pero mababa, yung ano raw, mild case lang naman daw. And, you know, I'm sorry, no, I'm just
So let me talk about
expressing.
that.
Yeah.
The vaccine will not necessarily prevent you from getting COVID, but it will prevent you from getting very severe COVID. So that's the protection. That's the individual protection that the vaccine gives. And that's why kahit ako, nagpabakuna ako when we health workers were
Yeah.
told to get the vaccine. Kuha ako kasi whether that comes from another country that you don't trust, I'll still take that vaccine because that's the one that's available. And if I catch it, I probably will get mild compared to
Okay.
some
Last
other senior citizen.
Yeah.
Oo.
Last question ko na lang, Doc Ted, from what you know from the hospital, from the IATF, etc., is it realistic to presume that we will all be vaccinated by the end of 2021? Or are we looking at 2022 all the way to the elections? Kasi some people are telling me, Sito, ito magiging campaign issue itong failure to vaccinate the population.
We're targeting to vaccinate at the National Vaccine Operation Center. We're targeting to really get the vaccinations done by this year. Our biggest hurdle is really the deliveries. So,
Okay.
kung mabagal ang dating, how can you hasten it? Even if all our systems are in place, pinag-practice na namin lahat ng LGU, the government wants to partner, pero kung hindi dumadating yung vaccine or the supplier doesn't supplies only in trickles because the supplies are in trickles. They don't come in, when we announce we get 30 million from Novavax, that 30 million is not gonna come in one delivery. It comes
Okay.
in 1 million, 2 million every month, every other month. So it's really dependent on production and then supply chain. So yung malaking factor yon to the speed of how we will be able to vaccinate. Ngayon,
Okay.
ubos na
Well,
yung stocks natin. Na-deliver na lahat yung 1.1 million sa lahat ng health facilities. It's up to them to deliver.
ilan na nabakunahan?
About 300,000 na yata. So, the other half is the second
Average
dose.
of how many persons a day?
Nasa 6,000 a day. Ganun ang parang
6,000 a day. Kasi
pero
ginawa ko yung computation based on the running rate. Ay sabi ko baka abutin tayo ng 19 years sa aking
the
mathematics.
running rate is really slow because the hospitals intentionally did it slowly. Kasi they don't want to be vaccinating everybody. Then everybody is sick the next day. So
Okay.
dinidistribute namin 10 people per unit.
Yun
So
ang
kasi
kailangan.
kundi wala kang nurse na papasok, wala kang doktor na
Oo.
papasok kasi lahat sila may lagnat the following day. Oh.
Yeah, kanya ako nagtatanong ng mga ganitong tanong. Kasi, di ba?
Deliberate yung
Kasi
slowing it down.
logically, sabi ko, parang, wow, 20,000 only last other day, naging 40, sabi ko, teka, at the rate we're going, abutin tayong 19 years. Eh, yung pala, sinasadya. Kasi pag nagsabay-sabay naman na may side effect, eh, wala kang
Walang papasok,
hospital.
walang ospital, di wala papasok.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Ted.
Thank you, Sita.
Okay, that's Dr. Ted Herbosa once again giving me logic, reason, and temperance. Thank you very much. Now let's go to retired Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio regarding the Isambayan or One Sambayan, depende on how you read it. Is this a political party, etc., etc.? Justice Carpio, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Cito. Thank you for inviting me to your program.
It is my pleasure and my honor because I have been watching your talks, and yesterday I watched the launch of the One Sambayan or Isambayan coalition. First question, and if you would bear with me, I will just go directly to questions so that you can cover a lot, Justice. No, you are a convener of One Sambayan o Isambayan. Ano po ba ito? Is this a political party or what is the purpose of this group?
This group is a coalition of democratic forces. The purpose of this coalition is for the democratic forces to put up only one slate in the 2022 elections for president, vice president, and hopefully for Senate. On the realization by everyone that if the democratic forces are divided, if they field two or more candidates, then they will likely lose to the other side. So all the parties have come to this realization. We've talked to most of them already, and they have agreed that there must be only one slate for the democratic forces to win, and that is the binding force of this coalition.
Now, I looked at the list of the conveners, and I noticed that you are non-politicians, generally apolitical individuals, issue sensitive but apolitical, forming what many are calling a political group.
uh, because we do not have any interest to be in politics. We have only an interest to put together the politicians to make them see that they have to unite this time for 2022 in order to win, in order that the democratic forces will defeat uh, the forces that adhere to extrajudicial killings, violation of human rights, refusal to defend our sovereign rights and maritime zones in the West Philippine Sea. So that is the premise, and they have agreed. The people that we've talked to, from the left to the right, from the Bayan Muna to Magdalo to the military officers who have retired, they have agreed, and everybody in between have agreed. This is really the realization of everyone. People are surprised. People are saying, "How can you unite all of this?" But they themselves understand that we have to unite, and they agreed to submit themselves to the process.
Okay, Justice, we'll go for a very quick break just to allow the commercial. And when we return, I would like to ask you many questions that I observed yesterday during your lunch. If you would bear with us, we'll be back right away. We'll go for a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and with us is former retired Senior Associate Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio. Justice Carpio, yesterday as I watched your launch, it became evident, as you pointed out, that this is a coalition of people representing those who believe in democracy and the principles and the rules of the Constitution, rule of law. But underneath that, you get the impression that it's all about getting Duterte and his minions out of government and out of the way. Some would say yeah, we can understand asar kayong lahat kay Duterte, but what's in it for the Filipinos? Are you simply, is your sole goal simply to get a candidate to pit against the Duterte camp? Or is the selection of your candidate going to be based on a vision and goal that you may already know?
Well, the first step, of course, is to get the Duterte group out of government. But in our selection process, we are interviewing all the possible candidates and asking them on their specific plans of action for certain issues like poverty. How will you resolve the issue of poverty, agriculture, education, defense of Philippine territory? So we have all of these issues listed down, and we will interview all of these people and ask them of what they plan to do once they are elected. And if we agree with their plans, then that means they could be candidates of the Isambayan. So the, the this is an entire process. That's why it's taking time. People
Mhm.
uh, are uh, uh, are are worried that we are losing time, but we have to go to this process because we cannot just uh, present someone on the basis of winnability alone. So we have
Mhm.
different criterias. You must have integrity. You must have competence, you must have patriotism and a vision for the country. And that vision, that's where all of these issues will be raised. We will ask you, what do you plan to do with agriculture, with
Mhm.
education? We're falling behind in education. So this is a process and an entire process.
Okay, and mind you, I'm going to put this in front. I believe in what you're doing. I support what you're doing. I don't want to be one of those naysayers who have been challenging and questioning your group all night. No, but I do need to point out a few things. When you guys mentioned the list of possible candidates that will be interviewing or who have agreed to be assessed and processed by Isambayan, the reaction and forgive me for being brutally frank is that anong bago? Half of the names that the good justice mentioned, oppositionist trapo, have personal issues, etc. But more glaring was the fact that no name of new people was mentioned. And hindi po ako nag-endorse kahit kanino, no? I just need to come up with an example. Vico Soto was never mentioned. Ramon Ang was never mentioned. Any business leader like Manny Pangilinan was not mentioned. Parang uh, they were all politicians to be pitted against politicians. What's your response to that? Is there any reason why we are not grabbing from a different universe?
Well, thank you for that. We like, for example, Vico. I think he's not yet qualified because of age. Now,
Mhm.
if you talk of Ramon Ang, we are willing to talk to him uh, with anybody. In fact, that's why we said we are. The process is still open. We will talk to anyone who's interested and uh, who fills in the criteria that we have set, competence, integrity, patriotism,
Mhm.
uh, and a vision for the country. We will talk to them. But
Mhm.
of course, naturally, the first people you talk to are the people already out there in front.
Yeah.
We are willing to talk to new people. I mean, there's in fact we are still very open to
Mhm.
discussing
The
with
process.
possible candidates.
the process, how will it go? Is it simply the members of the coalition coming up with their own recommendations? Because I don't. I would like to believe you're still a young person. In the time of our grandparents, hindi ka magbo-volunteer tumakbo eh. Ikaw yung ibo-voluntold. You are the one who are pushed by the community. Tumakbo ka, Justice Antonio, tumakbo ka kasi kailangan natin ng kandidato. And they would be the one to spend. But in this new world, will that be considered when outsiders say, Justice, dapat kunin nyo si ganito, kunin nyo si ganon, etc. And then the coalition goes for that candidate?
We will have an online primary. So anyone, we have two groups. The organizations that are pre-registered with us will give us the list of their members, and they will vote. They can add there any person they want. And then for the general public, they can do the same. They can choose the among the names that we list, and they can also add anyone that they want to include. And of course, we have devised a way where if you don't belong to any of the organizations, you have to give your email address so that we can check. And if that email is sent back, then we will count your vote. So it's still very much open.
Okay. My next point is, yesterday while you were speaking, should capitalists are political capitalists as well. Yung mga negosyante, they invest on politicians for their own interests and their benefits. Now, what is in it for capitalists to be interested to join you or support your coalition?
Well, we believe in the rule of law, and we will honor contracts entered into by the government. The complaint of businessmen against the Duterte administration is they threaten to cancel franchises that have been long signed, long negotiated, and suddenly they want to impose new terms. And of course, this will turn off a lot of businessmen, local and foreign. But for us, we will follow the rule of law. Those contracts will be honored because all the elements of a valid contract are there. We will not grandstand and say, oh, we will take over this water company, this utility company, and bring down water rates and power rates just to be popular. I mean, you can't run these utilities in that way. So we will honor those contracts that have been validly entered into, and the businessmen need not be afraid of what has been happening. You invested so much in media, and suddenly your franchise will not be renewed. So we will follow the rule of law.
Okay.
And
Now,
that is really the big worry of a businessman, because they cannot plan ahead. All their past investments are in peril because of government policies that change quickly.
I think it was Clint Eastwood who said in a movie, "You are a legend in your own mind." Tayong mga matatanda, we would like to think that we are the ones that cause change, move things, and make things happen. But as I was watching yesterday, one of the student regents, or young persons from the University of the Philippines made it clear. What's in it for us? The population right now, if I'm not mistaken, is 70% young people. And when I watched the conveners yesterday, sabi ko, talo yata kami dito. Puro na kami mga matatanda dito sa mga nanonood. What are the plans of the coalition as far as the youth is concerned?
Well, education is very important for the youth. Remember, Cito, we are doing this for the youth because we are in our 70s already. We're in the twilight of our years, and we want to leave a legacy. We want to ensure that the next generation will be properly equipped to compete with our neighbors. And we are falling behind in education, so we're very concerned about this. That's why we have educators. You have Brother Armin Luistro, and we will be diving deep into the problem of education in our country. And everything we're doing is really for the youth. And we will establish Isambayan chapters in UP, Ateneo, LaSalle, and all other schools because this entire effort is really for the youth, for the next generation. We have to equip them properly because we are falling behind. In all the surveys, our educational system has fallen behind. And once you lose that edge in education, you cannot compete anymore.
Okay, we'll go for another quick break, Justice, and we'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to Agenda, and let's bring back Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. Justice, my next question would be based on what you've said so far. The coalition is going to study, review, assess, endorse whoever becomes candidate for president and vice president. And I'm totally direct and blunt. Walang bago sa mga nasabi mong pangalan except for one. And that person is not even on the list that you mentioned. His name is Antonio Carpio. Because Antonio Carpio has track record of integrity, of patriotism, and of competence. Now, you modestly smile, but it has to be about track record. What happens if the plate falls, is put in front of you? Kasi I know, convenor ka, pero if you happen to be the best choice, what happens?
Well, my name will not be considered because there will be a conflict of interest. I chair the Isambayan, and I have made this clear that I'm not interested in running. I'm interested in ensuring that the next administration will follow the rule of law. And I have my advocacy defending our sovereign rights in the West Philippine Sea, and I'd like that to be my main advocacy. And
What
that's
what
why
better
I-
what better place to do that than in government? And I'm not going to limit you to any office, but they've always said if you want to change the system, get into the system.
Well, I've been in government during the time of Ramos and when I was in the Supreme Court, and I have instituted reforms. Now that I'm over 70, I'd like to, we have to slow down. We're not young anymore. So I would like to concentrate on certain advocacies that require my expertise. Now, suddenly, I've been asked to chair this Isambayan as a last hurrah to ensure that the next administration we'll follow the rule of law. We'll defend our maritime zones, our territory, and we'll ensure that our economy can be revived. So I have accepted this challenge, but I am not interested in running for government. I have said
But-
that many times.
Yeah, Justice, I've said many times in my youth, I will never be a journalist. And my father knew that bitterly so well. And yet here I am, because man proposes, God disposes. So the question is, and forgive me for being a pest, but what if it is presented to you, or you become the only or logical choice? Because man to man, you are the better man. Huwag mo akong puputulan, Justice.
It's slowly coming. Okay. As I've said, I would prefer that we.
Okay, sabi ko na nga ba may mangyayaring ganyan eh. And look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not trying to nag the justice, or I'm not trying to put him in a spot, but that is the question on the mind of so many people. Because kahapon, when they launched, it was a courageous effort. It was a commendable effort to see so many people of different political persuasions and economic standards or levels to come together. And I think the only sad point is that they had a common enemy, and the common enemy happened to be the President of the Republic. But when you study everything that has been said and done, it would seem that if you want to talk about integrity, competence, if you want to talk about patriotism and track record, compared to all the others mentioned, medyo malinis pa yung ano yung plato ni Justice Carpio. Anyway, I will ask the group to please find out. In any case, there was also a question here regarding reactions, but I do hope that the good justice did not take any offense to that. I know he is above that kind of thing. In any case, we will have to go for the netizen report to find out what your feedbacks were from the past programs here on Agenda.
National Capital Region has adopted uniform curfew hours. That's why we ask our netizens if they are in favor of stricter quarantine rules. Kini Law says that implementation of rigid health protocols is effective on areas with high rates of infection. Jorge Manticaon supports stricter measures but says it should be granular. Rodolfo Santiago adds that we should be stricter with the use of face masks and face shields. Meanwhile, Mark Duce has no reservations on having stricter quarantine rules. We also tackled the continued price cap on pork and chicken products. Nelson Uy supports the price cap because he believes that the hog racing business did not change. This even as the country faces the African swine fever. Reynaldo Jeff Batersal extends his sympathies to hog racers who are drastically affected by the ASF. He says allowing a price increase will help producers recoup their losses.
Okay, we're back here on Agenda, and thank you for all of you who have been giving us feedback. And if you read my column today, it's all about the pork hog racing industry. In any case, going back to you, okay, there we have Justice. Justice, akala ko pinutulan mo na ako eh. In any case,
Sorry.
we have a few minutes. We have a few minutes left, Justice. The question I would also be asking is, assuming that you got your lineup, assuming that you come up with a really good lineup, who's going to foot the bill and who's going to run the show? Because, you know, campaign, elections, etc., that's a massive task, and I've seen that firsthand.
Cito, if we are able to keep the coalition intact and we are able to come out with a unified slate, the businessmen who normally contribute will see that this is a viable group. And many of them want that the next administration should respect their contracts, their franchises, and I think they will support us financially. So that's how we see it. And on the campaign machinery, we will put up a coalition campaign machinery, but of course, the individual parties will have their own campaign machinery. And that's the overall picture.
Okay.
We will put up chapters in schools because the youth are really hungry for this. They have, their response was overwhelming, and they understand that this is their future. And
Okay.
and so that's how we look at it.
Okay, well, my last question would be, what sort of platform works for the coalition? Kasi that has always been an issue in the past elections. No one really came up with a platform. No one ever really came up with an advanced list of qualified cabinet members and bureaucratic plans.
Is to the public, of course, but on the cabinet members, it will, I think it will take time because it might be too early to come out, but they will know from the people supporting us where we will get the talent.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Justice. We've run out of time, but thank you for being patient with me. Congratulations, and thank you for continuously being brave, courageous, and being a leader, leading this coalition. And I just hope that we can all be civil and we can all look forward to the growth and the prosperity of the country under God. Thank you very much, Justice.
Thank you, Cito. Thank you for having me.
Okay, yan po si retired Senior Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Antonio Carpio. Diretsahan po ang tanungan. Naku, mapapagalitan na naman ako ng kaibigan ko si Howie Calleja. But, you know, questions have to be asked. And I do hope that all of you will continue to be hopeful. I will not take sides on the matter. I will take my position. It will be my personal position. Bahala na si Lord. Because I've always said, the President of the Philippines in the length and the long of time, sa haba ng panahon, have always been President needed to meet a particular need or crisis or daing ng masa. And ang nangyayari, we get that President. Our mistake is when God gives us the solution, we start behaving like that president is God and we forget about God. I'm not being religious here, pero ilang beses na yan. Ilang beses nang nag-attempt tayo, some people talked about making someone a saint, beatifying someone, talking about someone as the economic solution to our disaster, etc., etc. At the end of the day, it is man who proposes, it is God who disposes. It is God who anoints our leaders, and it will also be God who will take down our leaders if they become ungodly. Basahin niyo po, Psalm 37. I challenge you, If you've never read the Bible, read chapter 37, regardless of your disposition, inclination, and degree. Okay? That's all for us. Have a great weekend. God bless all of you.